Hi, I'm John Schroeder with this latest Casey Clips video. I'm about to discuss one of the most challenging and diverse issues we've ever done before. So far, we've had no complaints regarding our suggested solution to issues like COVID. Today, I want to flesh out the true issues of right and wrong as they relate to the violence occurring between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So wish me luck. You may have noticed that our default answer to any tough question is that we do what Jesus would do. And today is no different. But trying to respond as Jesus would in the Gaza Strip requires having the Christ consciousness. That means we can say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and mean it to the core of our being. Allow me to adjust that Bible quote to this. What would Jesus have me do? To explain the difference between those two ways of resolving a challenge, we should know that with every selfish choice we make, we disconnect further from God. As we turn away from our Creator, we also lessen our access to God's infinite knowledge and power. So while Jesus makes decisions out of omniscience and omnipotence, we work with a lot less information and power in the choices we make. So when Israel and Hamas are upset with each other, they too have separated themselves from the perfect solutions available to all those who have the Christ consciousness. If we can't respond to being bombed and invaded with, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, just what options do we have to work with? This is where we should ask in meditation, what would God have me do? When asked with a loving intent, the perfect answer will come from the divine within based on what we can handle and still be as kind and loving as possible. That answer won't be ideal, but it will be the best we can do given our level of spiritual development at this point. A good example of how our level of spiritual growth affects the results we can achieve relates back to World War II. Casey was asked on May 30th, 1942, how long the war would last. Mind you, war was already declared and the battle lines drawn back in December 7th, 1941. Casey's answer was the war could be over by September of that same year. He did caution that such a quick end would require a united effort by the people who pray more than the people who shoot. Since nothing gets a government organized faster than a war, the shooters kept World War II going for almost 3 more years than Casey said would be needed. Apparently, we need a lot more people praying than we had back in the early 1940s. So, how does that relate to Israel and Hamas? Both sides have the ability to not choose violence, but that ship has sailed. Israel and Hamas both have plenty of people who want to shoot each other. But how many exist on both sides who would prefer and pray for peace? We may feel powerless to help, let alone stop the violence completely. But Casey's readings indicate our united prayers can usher in an early end to the fight. The best part is that our prayers work from the comfort of our own homes, no matter where the battle takes place. To directly address the opening question, Israel and Hamas have ignored the first option of not shooting at each other. That means neither side measured up to the best that was within them. The longer the conflict carries on, the more we prove we would rather resolve our differences through violence than prayer or cooperation. It's safe to say there is enough blame to go around for everyone. So a focus on blaming the other side makes no sense. A great question here deals with being a conscientious objector. What if you were a citizen of Israel and you were drafted into their military forces? Do you fold your arms and refuse to fight? Casey said that if we are to enjoy the advantages of being a citizen of a nation, we have an obligation to support the protection of it. That does not mean that you ever have to fire a shot in anger, but you can be a conscientious objector and still go through basic training with all the other soldiers. Only a small percentage of military personnel actually engage in fighting. If you karmically don't need to be involved in carrying out violent acts, you will be divinely protected from entering the fray. For example, Casey's own children were eligible for the draft when World War II came about. Both were conscientious objectors, and they asked in a reading how they should handle that. For the older son, Hugh Lynn Casey, he was told to allow himself to be drafted, and he would end up in a non-fighting position, which turned out to be in public affairs, organizing USO shows. For the younger son, Edgar Evans Casey, the reading suggested that he voluntarily sign up. He was an electrical engineer and worked for a subsidiary of General Electric. He would not have been drafted because he had what they called an essential job toward the war effort. However, Casey's source said the son would soon be assigned to designing weapons that would kill people, and that should be avoided. So Edgar Evans volunteered, went in as an officer because of his education, and chose his assignment on a Caribbean island running their power station for the duration of the war. It's amazing that the laws of attraction and karma draw to us the exact conditions we need for our highest spiritual growth. From the example of Casey's own children, we can see that God has a perfect handle on this. To recap the message here, it is never the right choice to use violence in demanding that the opposing side do things your way. However, if they strike first, it is the responsibility of a nation's citizens to protect the country. If you are a conscientious objector who doesn't want to fight or need to fight to learn a karmic lesson, you will be assigned to jobs or places that will keep you out of the fray. And if you do find yourself involved in combat, remember that prayer makes all the difference in resolving violent conflicts. That's it for this edition of Casey Clips. Please keep those questions coming in the comments section of our videos. We check them daily and answer them first in writing and sometimes by making a complete video like this one about the topic. Until next time, remember that God loves you with an everlasting love.